Hello everyone, this is going to be a harmonization example for AMEB Grade 5 theory. Okay, so let's get into it. So we're in the key of B flat major. So what I like to do is write out a couple of things related to B flat major. So we've got the tonic, B flat, D and F. We've got the supertonic, C, E, G, subdominant, dominant, and submediant. So these are the main chords that you'll be using in grade 5 theory. Okay, so that's good. So we're in B flat major, and so I guess in grade 5 theory, you just want to use everything that you can and try to always avoid consecutive fifths, consecutive octaves, and also avoid open fifths and open octaves, which are a little bit harder to explain. So we might encounter some of those during this example. Okay, so here we're in B flat major. We've got D, C, B flat. So that's going from the third to the first note. And so what you can do is always reverse that. So a good way to avoid consecutive fifths and octaves is to do contrary motion. So that's when one voice is going downwards or upwards, and then another voice is going in the opposite direction. So that helps you avoid consecutive fifths and octaves. Now in grade 5 theory, you'll come across a chord progression, namely being 1, going to 7, B, going to 1B. And so this is a common pattern that you'll often see in grade 5 theory. And so here we've got that here, right? So we can put a 1 here, a 7B, and a 1B. And so we can fill in the rest. So B flat, going to an A, going to a B flat. And with your leading note, you want to always try to resolve that upwards. So the leading note should go towards the tonic most of the time. The only exception really is if the leading note falls to the dominant. But for this exam purposes, just try to resolve it if you can. So you often see something like this, right? And so you can have a look through the piece and you see 3, 2, 1 or 1, 2, 3, right? You can always do 1B, 7B, 1 in that way as well. So we've got another one here. So we might as well just fill that in straight away. So for 1, 7B, and 1B, right? So 1, 7B, 1B. Now when you're writing your chords, you want to align them so that they're under the right notes. So like for example, I wouldn't want to put a crotchet here because that would be directly under the quaver and then it's no longer going to be a crotchet. So I'm going to move it towards the side a little bit. So here. Okay, and we'll continue and put these in. B flat, A, B flat. And we also got F, E flat, F. All right. Awesome. Now let's keep scanning. So this end thing here, we've got 1. So this note here is the tonic. This is the leading note, and this is the tonic, right? So that should pretty much scream to you 1C, 5, 1. And that's what I'm going to do. So 1C, I think in grade 5 theory you're introduced to 1C. And 1C is just the second inversion of the tonic chord. So you often see 1C, 5, 1 at the end of pieces. You might see 1C, 5 going to 6. So this is going to be an interrupted cadence, right? Or you might just see 1C to 5, right? That would be an imperfect cadence. But you only see 1C really at cadences. So you don't want to be going from a 1C to something. You want to go from 1C to 5 and that progression should be a cadential progression. It shouldn't just be stuck anywhere. So here we've got a 1C, a 5, and a 1. Now with the 1C, you want to double your bottom note. So the bottom note here in this case is going to be F, right? So that's looking at this note here, F. Okay, so F. We also want to double that F, so a good place seems to be here, right? Because there's an F here in the alto line here, right? There's an F already there, so I might as well just double the F there. And what note am I missing? I've got an F, got a B flat, double F, I need a D. Something like that. And then 5, well, I could just do another F, or I could be a little bit fancy, so I'll just put it down here, right? FAC, so I've got an A. You never double the leading note. So I need a C, and I need an F, right? And then I'll finish that off. F, B flat, and I've got an F, so I need a D. And there we have it, right? So almost halfway through already, which is good. So obviously we've done the easy stuff so far. So now we need to have a look at what the rest of this stuff is. So let's have a look at the second bar. So we start off with this, we've got a C to a B flat to an A. Okay, so this A, every single time you see an A for grade 5 theory, you're basically going to be forced to use a 5 chord, right? There's really not much. I mean, it's either the 5 chord or the 7B chord. You'll never use a 7 by itself. So you only get, usually if you see an A by itself, it's just the dominant chord. And I guess in that sense, grade 5 theory is a little bit restricted. It'll be a little bit more open in grade 6 theory. So we've got a 5 chord here. So a 5 chord. Right, so we can choose between 5, 5B to make things a little bit more interesting, but here it can't be a 5B, it has to be a 5, because we've already got the leading note, right? So if we had a 5B, we'd have 2 A's, which means we'd have 2 leading notes, and that's not good. Okay, now what goes to a 5? Well, we could have a 2B, we could have a 4. I quite like the idea of a 4, simply because it establishes the key we're in pretty well. So let's do a 4, and let's do 4B. And here we've got a C, right? So C, it gives me the feeling that it's going to be a 2. So we've already got a C, so maybe let's do a 2B, right? So that's going to be E flat. 4B is going to be G. And then we've got F for 5. Awesome. Okay, and so let's finish this off. So 2B. So with the 2B chord, you can double anything. Yeah, so we need a G, and we need a E. We can have anything. So I'm not going to put a C here, because that would be consecutive octaves with the soprano line. So looks like I'm either going to put a G, which I don't really fancy, or I'll put an E flat. So looks like I'm going to have to go with an E flat. So let's put an E flat up here and a G here. We're going to the 4th chord, so we've got an E flat, G, B flat. Okay, so we can put another E flat here. And we've got a G, we've got a B flat, we've got an E flat. So let's change it up a bit and go to an E flat. And then I think in grade 5 theory you come across passing notes and auxiliary notes. So I could easily put a passing note there. In fact, I can do one in the bass as well. So you can see that the alto line and bass line, they are going in contrary motion, which is good. Okay, cool. Now 5 chord. So we've got an F as A. Let's put another F here and a C. Right, and we can chuck in another passing note. So you don't have to be too extreme with your passing notes, but putting a couple here and there is nice. Okay. All right, so now we're going to a G to B flat. So G and B flat seem to be, it's either 4 or 6. 6 seems to be all right, because I can do 6B to a 6. And again, that's going to be in contrary motion. So contrary motion really is quite a good tool to use. So we've got a B flat here to a G. And that's really good, right? You already ensured that your soprano line and your bass line are not going to be consecutive. And that's really good. Now, there's this really awkward rest here, so there's nothing we can really do about that. So maybe we'll chuck in rest in here as well. Okay, so we've got a B flat to G. Okay, so we've got 6B. So anytime you're going from a 5 chord to a 6 chord, it's like a very dangerous process. So there's a lot of potential pitfalls in terms of consecutives. So generally speaking, with the 6 chord, when you're going from a 5 chord to a 6 chord, you must double the third in the 6th chord. So the third in this case is going to be B flat. We've already got one B flat. So I think I'm going to put another B flat here. And then the other note I'm missing is a D. So I'll just chuck that in like that. Okay. Now I've got another 6 chords, so let's just put another B flat here and another D here. So you can see that doing this contrary motion just makes things really easy. We could do a little passing note here whilst we're at it. So that's nice. Cool. Now, what are we going to do about this next two? So again, we have an A here again, which is really annoying. So we're going to have to put a 5 of some sort. And this is another F. So it looks like it's still part of the 5 chord. So let's do a 5B. All right. And so all of a sudden, we've got contrary motion again. And that's exactly what we want. So F to A. Right? And again, we can add a little bit of a passing note here. So now we've got F to A, all 5. So these two notes are all 5. So again, I can do a similar thing which I did before. Put a C here and a C here. And then an F here and an F here to complete the chord, right? And I can put a little bit of a passing note here as well. Cool. Now we've got G to E flat to F. Okay, so G to E flat seems to be, well, G can be a 6 chord, right? So we can go from 5B to 6B. That won't be criminal. 6B. So that'll be, 6B. So that'll be like an interrupted cadence. So going from 5 to 6, always double the third, right? So again, we've got the third here. We want another B flat. And then we're missing a D. So let's put that in here. Cool. So that's 6B. Okay. And what are we going to do about this E flat? So we've got an F standing on by itself here. So that kind of screams some sort of a cadence. But at the same time, we've also got another A here, another C, another F. These seem to all be from the dominant chord. So it looks like we're going to have quite a string of 5s. Okay, so let's do that. So we've got an F already, so perhaps we finish on a 5B. Because I've got an A incoming, right? So I don't want this to be a 5. If this chord here is a 5, then what am I going to put next? Another 5? That's a little bit weird. So I'm just always looking ahead, right? Just to see what's following up. Is my transition going to be okay? So obviously I want to put a 5 here. Anytime there's an A, you want to put a 5, right? Because that A is the leading note. So 5B going to 5 seems to be an okay transition. Okay. So let's put our notes in. So this is going to be an A. And then this is going to be an F. Okay. So we need to fix up this chord in the middle with the E flat. Well, 2B going to 5 is very common, but 2B doesn't really work here. But 2 seems to be okay as well. So why don't we put a 2 here, right? Then that'll be a C, right? And again, I'm being very careful not to put it directly under the quaver, right? So C, C, and so again, in the 2 chord, you can double anything, right? So this seems to be going down to a C, and let's bring this one to a G. So I've got all the notes in the chord. Okay. Looks like we've got some opportunities for passing notes again. Actually, it's probably not a good idea to put a passing note here. So probably not a good idea to put an A in here, simply because you're going to be putting a leading note in, and that's a little bit risky always. So when you're doing harmonization, try not to use the leading note as a passing note. Okay, it's a little bit risky sometimes. Okay, and we've got 5. So we've already used an A and an F. We need an F and a C. So the C obviously goes here, and the F obviously goes here. Okay. And again, we've got a F here and a C here. So another thing I forgot to mention, you need to be careful with your gaps between adjacent voices. So with the bass line, you can kind of abuse it a little bit. It can be greater than an octave, but between the soprano and alto, can't be more than an octave. Between the alto and the tenor, can't be more than an octave. So that's just something to keep in mind. Okay, and we've got another C here. So let's do a 5B to a 5. So it's going to A to an F, because all of these seem to be part of the same chord. So let's do that. Something like this. And I'm going to need a C and a C in both cases here. So again, I'm going in contrary motion. I can have these passing notes, which is good. Cool. Okay, final chord. So we're going from F to E flat. And E flat can be either 2 or 4. But we are going from the 5 chord. So the 5 chord has the leading note, and the leading note must be resolved, like I said a little bit earlier. So we can't really use a 2 chord here, because where's the A going to go? We need a B flat. So we need both an E flat and a B flat, so we can only use the 4 chord really. And so should I use 4 or 4B? Well, 4B is a G, so it seems to be a little bit closer to my 1, which is coming up later. So I'm going to put a 4B here. So that's going to go to a G and a 4B. So I just need to be very careful here to avoid consecutives. So I'm going to put a B flat here, and then could put a G. Don't think that will be bad. Yeah, so G seems to be okay. So I'll just double the 3rd in this case. So there we have it. Now so when we're done, we want to check for consecutives. So we just need to scan between the soprano alto, soprano tenor, soprano bass, alto tenor, alto bass, and tenor bass. So you just want to avoid consecutive fifths and consecutive octaves. So yeah, so there are a couple of things you don't have to scan, right? So 1, 7B, 1B, that will never be consecutive by nature. Your 1C5, 1, if you do it correctly, it won't be consecutive either. So there aren't that many things you need to check, really. So you might see this sort of thing, right? These look consecutive, but they're all part of the 5 chord, so it's not too bad. Yeah, it's not too big an issue here. So let me know if you guys see any consecutives, but from my quick analysis, this seems to be okay. And so there you have it. So I guess With grade 5 theory, when you're writing between the voices, you don't want the voices to jump too much. A little bit of a jump is okay, but you don't want to be too drastic, because if you imagine you're singing this, you don't want to be jumping between. You don't want to be doing too large intervals, because that's uncomfortable to sing. Try to use your 1-7B 1B as much as you can, because that demonstrates that you've done your revision. 1C5-1 is good. 1C, always add a cadence though. So 1C5-6, 1C5-1, 1C5. And yeah, that's it really.